Hello again, everyone. I was hoping I didn't have to make another video like this. So, here we are. What some people would project as the beginning of a second civil war for us. Honestly, I've been calling a lot of this stuff out and seeing it and trying to explain that this is the direction that we're going. So, in the past couple of weeks since I posted, there's been a lot going on. President Trump had announced that he was seeking to declare Antifa as an organization and their subsidiaries as a domestic terrorist organization. His reasoning behind this is because during the George Floyd protests that were going on, political movements were seeking to usurp, co-opt, and honestly destroy the purpose of those George Floyd protests to kind of upset the fabric of America. We've seen, since I've posted last, the return to tearing down statues. It started out with Confederate statues, as was stated, that they said they wanted to remove the symbols of the Confederacy. Even the Democrats were even pulling along with it. Nancy Pelosi had announced that she's going to be removing the photos that were painted, or the pictures that were painted in the House of Representatives of former speakers. She was going to have them removed that had served in the Confederacy. But in the following days, the later days, these activists have gone after more than just what they were saying. It was the Confederate statues. They've attacked statues of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Those are founding fathers of our nation. They desecrated the monument to the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. For anybody that has not, read the book or seen the movie Glory, the 54th Massachusetts Regiment was an all-black U.S. Army regiment that fought for the Union. And so it's no longer, like I said, something about racial and social justice. It's not. They may try and say it's under they may try and guise it under these social justice things. Actually, Antifa has been more often than not seen into the BLM movement. When one flag is declared an enemy of the state, they just hide under a different flag. This is a movement of cowards, but they still seek to destroy the fabrics of which the United States is built on. The United States was built as a nation that was unique. It was not ruled by the church or ruled by a king. It wasn't going to be ruled by a single family or anything like that. It was supposed to be ruled by law. And the rule of law, it's black and white. It's supposed to be, doesn't matter what color, doesn't matter what creed, doesn't matter what you believe in, as long as you follow the laws, you should be good. And those that break the law, rich, poor, anybody else like that, should be punished equally under those laws. Now, has it happened? Necessarily? No, it hasn't. And I think our justice system does need to be rebalanced. I think there does need to be police reforms that need to go on. But total destruction of the United States and the destruction of the rule of law, that's not going to embetter anybody. And we're seeing this in Atlanta and at the Capitol Hill Occupied protest is what it's called now, I believe. The CHOP, it was formerly the Chaz. It was basically a 6-block area of Seattle that, is just they've declared it police free. There are armed leftists patrolling these streets. Within the past couple of days, there was confirmed there was a homicide, a shootout and a homicide in the CHOP. Atlanta police have been calling in sick. They're not taking or responding to any calls. And this is a complete breakdown of the rule of law. This I cannot abide. I'm all for restructuring the police department. I believe that the police have become hyper-militarized. Now, initially there's a reasoning for it, and I'm going to give you some background on why the police have had to arm up significantly, and give you the few instances in which we have had to escalate things because of it. And we'll start it out in the 1990s. There was a bank robbery in the 1990s. I'm fairly certain most people are aware of it in Southern California, where two men entered a bank armed with body armor and fully automatic AK-47 rifles. They went in, robbed, and then when police had shown up, they had no fear, because none of the police's small arms that they had on their their sidearms at the time were able to penetrate the Kevlar body armor that these police officers, that these men were wearing. And these men had, 7.62 FMJs that could easily tear through anything that the police had as far as body armor goes. It would go through most cars. So, with the coming of that event, police officers had to go into a gun store actually to retrieve some rifles that would have some higher penetration and the capabilities in which to penetrate the body armor of these two individuals. The police then found that there was a necessity with certain criminals that they had access to certain weapons, that they would be able, that they could basically just shrug off anything that the police had to offer. So the police had a need for higher power weapons. So it was accommodated. Most police squad cars are equipped with an AR-15, along with, coming with their standard issue sidearm. Now let's fast forward this into about another 10-15 years later. And I can't remember the exact date, but I do recall the area is Ceres, California. Ceres, California is a town, is a kind of a small city kind of town in Central Cal, with the emergence of the Iraq War. This was discussed in the Navy Times, the Army Times, most of the military Times magazines, as well as some of the other programs. Gangland actually showed an instance of this. But during the early 2000s, gangs were still back home here in the United States trying to assert dominance over us while we were fighting a war. And they figured that the best way to be able to get some high-tech, high-trained individuals out on the street was to send their own soldiers, their own gang members out into the military. Now, a good majority of those individuals didn't go back to the gang life. They stayed in the military, or they found other ways out. It's a lot better to be alive, legal, doing good things, as opposed to dead. But then again, there are also some people that could not get out of the lifestyle. So the event happened in Ceres, California, in which a Hispanic man, a young man, former Marine, was strung out on all kinds of drugs. And he had a wild hair up his ass and decided he was going to kill two police officers. He was armed with an SKS rifle with 30-round magazines. And when he was engaged by these two police officers with just their standard sidearms and him with an SKS rifle, basically an SKS is an American equivalent to an M14 or our M1, our with the precursor for ours with the M1 Garand. But this is a magazine-fed semi-automatic 7.62 by 3.9 rifle. and he took his Marine Corps tactics to engage the police officers, pin them down, and essentially execute them. He went on and fought the police for another good 15 to 20 minutes. He held off an entire SWAT team with one rifle. Through this, it was decided that the police needed to be able to come up with tactics to be able to train, to be able to fight against a higher trained enemy. With a 20-year war that has gone on, there is a high likelihood of engaging criminal elements that perhaps may have been former veterans. So, fast forward it today, the war is winding down. There isn't as much of a need to be able to use these military tactics. As the wars have winded down, you've got less and less veterans out there. Well, maybe not necessarily veterans out there, but less youth that are getting this highly capable combat training as well as real life combat experience. So I think it would be the appropriate thing for the police to be able to step back on their use of tactics and maybe find some alternatives. And at the same time, there's significant vetting that should go on with our police officers. And I was going to give you an example of some things that could go on as far as like the police reforms and how it goes. This is just going to be a random rant. There's just so much going on right now. I really want to be able to talk about a broad spectrum of subjects. But I wanted to get into my ideas with police reform. Here in Houston, we actually have three police. Well, if you don't count the state police, we have three law enforcement agencies that really handle things here in the city of Houston. First, obviously, HPD, Houston Police Department. They're headed up by a chief of police who's appointed by the mayor. They're deployed all over the city. The next is the Harris County Sheriffs. Harris County Sheriff is the overall law enforcement chief for the entirety of Harris County. If Harris County Sheriff wants, jurisdiction over something, he gets it. He is, as all sheriffs are, duly elected officials. He's able to select his deputies and he is obligated to the people. He can be recalled by the people if he does not serve his community and the county to the best of his ability. Lastly, we have the constables. Constables are actually district, kind of similar to the sheriff, but they're district police. The chief constable is another elected official within those districts. His officers are all from that community. The constable is also from that community. Whereas you can have Houston Police Department, a guy from Jacinto City working over in outside of the, into the downtown area. He may not necessarily know the people there. He may not know everything that would need to go on. Counties is huge, right? You could be from the northern part of Harris County, patrolling the southern part of Harris County all day. But then you have the constables. Now the constableships, I would like to see maybe some of the police departments be absorbed into the constableships and have the police maybe service only the downtown area. A smaller police presence overall in the city, but those cops are going to be more familiar with that area. What I would like to see is that the constableship starts taking over some of these districts that the HPD was operating under, because the constables are going to be the ones that will be from that community. HPD officer from Jacinto City is not going to know the guy, this homeless guy that's roaming around, kind of crazy from downtown. However, say you're over here in my district. He's not just officer blah 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 from I don't know where. He's going to be constable officer Tom something. But he lives like 2 blocks away and he knows the people in the community. So maybe that could be an idea towards the restructuring of the police system. However, let's get on to the next point where I was talking about these statues being torn down. This is a fabrication. as far as what their meaning is of it. The statue's being torn down. They say it's in the cause of social justice. This is because we have idolized, slave owners and butchers and whatnot. It's not the case. What they are trying to do is trying to destroy our history. They want this being taught in history, but they also want this not to be taught in history. They want you to say this, but don't do this. They want to rewrite the history, and even I could see with the Democratic Party removing the pictures of former House speakers that were serving in the Confederacy. All of those House speakers, from what I understand, were Democrats. The Democrats are trying to get rid of their ugly past. They could say they switched all they want. There was no real switch when everyone was talking about, the Democratic and the Republican Party switched over. No, they didn't. There was only two representatives at that time that switched over from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. One of them was Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond was an asshole, grade A asshole, racist asshole, no doubt about it. But the Democratic Party at that point in time during the Civil Rights Movement and the following years after that, they sought to, instead of to oppress and subjugate the minorities that they had previously been doing prior to the years of the Civil Rights Movement, they found it was better to be able to manipulate them and bribe them with free government cheese, to be able to keep them in their positions and keep them voting Democrat. They created a lot of problems for minorities here in the United States. So, what does this all mean? With the destruction of they're trying to destroy our history, they're trying to eliminate their history, they're trying to eliminate the police. All in all, this is just a complete attempt to unravel the fabric of the United States. And there are so many people on board with it. The United Nations is trying to prop up Antifa and defend them. Many of the media and news organizations, they're allowing Antifa to do what they want, and anytime somebody retaliates, they go after the person that was trying to defend themselves and saying that they're a racist or a bigot. And it absolutely disgusts me. What I was telling you about last time, where you're going to start seeing armed militias popping up. What the hell do you think is happening? Philadelphia, 700 armed individuals were standing around statues in Philadelphia. Philadelphia was a blue city. 70% blue. 700 people showed up to defend the landmarks. In New Mexico, in Albuquerque, there was an attempt to destroy a statue of a conquistador. There was an Antifa member, I believe, that was shot and critically wounded. The Chaz is just absolutely insane. We've got to take our country back. I don't know how they're going to do it. I know how they're going to do it. They're going to bring a stick. They're going to bring the sword. These kids that are LARPing and pretending to be revolutionaries, they have no idea or understand at all what kind of can of worms that they're opening. And I don't care if it's because somebody with bigger pockets is putting money into theirs to be able to cause all this trouble, but these kids have no idea what they're doing. And it's going to get a lot of people killed. There are already bodies in the streets because of this. There are already people dying. There are already people getting hurt. America has had enough. I've had enough. I don't know what else to say, man. Any political actors, people that are trying to blame Republicans, Democrats, all this other stuff. I know I put a lot of blame on Democrats, but it's because they're an easy target. But you Republicans, stand up for your fucking selves. Stand up. This is weakness. This is what I'm seeing as weakness. I'm a conservative individual. I serve my country. I continue to serve my damn country. Stand up for us. Get this thing to stop. Because when it comes into the prospect of if you don't do it, we will do it, you better start taking that very seriously. Because there's a lot of Americans that are fully prepared to return this nation to the glory it had. Whether with your help or against or without it. There are plenty of people here that are tired of these privileged kids and these old socialists trying to destroy the fabric of the United States under the guise of justice. There's no justice here. Take it back.